Hi, this is Dr. Gina. We're here talking today about family roles. Over the years, family roles have changed so much. If you go from, the early days, even I always think sometimes that like the 50s set this weird precedence of mom, dad, leave it to beaver type thing that, the mom stayed home and whatever Cleaver, I can't remember his name, but the dad would go to work and come home, and June would be in her nice little dress, and the two boys would be there. Hey, mom, I got some cookies. And so this was like the 50s. But the 50s came out of a time where we had the Industrial Revolution and post-war, and lots of things had happened where men had come home, women had been working, men came back and they needed jobs, so women went back to the home. So this was like this perfect little 20-year period. And then of course we hit the 60s and 70s. That became sort of a revolutionary time. However, at least in the Christian world, they always kind of reflected back to the 50s. So some of that reflects back into biblical ideas of the father being the patriarch of the family. Culturally, there's been the mother, the father, and the kids. But family roles have shifted so much even in the past 20 years since I've been doing therapy. I mean, not too long ago, I've had several transgenders or blooming transgenders where the families have to adjust that this is no longer a sister, or this is no longer a brother, or this is no longer a son, or this is no longer a daughter. People converting their roles by choice, like that's never been an option, or at least not much of one. So now we've got roles that change because of marriage. Now you've got step families, blended families. I've dealt with numerous stay-home dads now that take care of the infants while the mothers go back to work because the mothers have a higher education. We have some traditional thoughts about roles, though, that tend to cause trouble when they're not able to be flexible, because society is so flexible these days. Now, I know there's a lot of rigidity in a conservatism versus liberalism, and both are kind of polarized. There should be no dictates on liberalism, and there should be, no looseness on conservatism. But somewhere along the line, I think there's grace. Like when people get divorced and they get remarried, their roles often change because you go from a nuclear family parent to a step parent. Step parenting is a whole different ball of wax. It does not function like a nuclear family. I've been a step parent before. I've been a step grandparent before. And you just don't dictate to the step kids what they're going to do. You defer it, or you're going to end up with kids that don't like you. So there's different ways. And I've had to be the primary breadwinner in several relationships where, one of them did more of the cooking than I did because I was working longer hours. When we think of roles, they go deep. And in abusive family dynamics, I often see family roles become so rigid that there's power and control dynamics that go along with it. Like it's called masculine gender roles. But guess what? It's not only on the male, but on the female too. Like the female be like, you need to put gas in my car because you're the man. Or you need to mow the lawn because you're the man. Or you need to take out the trash. And then the man's like, well, I shouldn't be cleaning the house because you're the woman. And these rigid gender role dynamics start happening that cause collision and cause manipulation and coercion, and ultimately can cause abusive dynamics, which could include verbal abuse, physical abuse. When you think of your roles also are always changing. When someone dies, you may lose your position as a child or a friend or aunt or uncle. So sometimes being more flexible in your role identity and other people's role identities are going to really help, because I've gained and lost so many roles. Both of my parents are deceased, so I'm no longer a daughter. I'm a daughter of God, but I no longer have parents. My siblings don't have much to do with me, so I'm no longer a sister where I was in my earlier years. You grieve your roles as they change. You identify and you recognize new roles. And then when you do, you invest in those new roles and you just understand life is about changing. And it helps you not to judge yourself so hard. And when you don't judge yourself as hard, you're not going to judge other people as hard. So, allow your roles to be flexible, movable, realize society's gone through a lot of changes, and just be filled with love and grace. This is my thoughts about family roles.